Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. You have a good weekend?
I had an excellent weekend. I went to see the air show. That was very cool.
Ah,
To be honest with you, I didn't do much else, actually.
okay.
But
Okay.
that was very fun. And we got a little bit of rain, so that was cool to look at that. We haven't seen rain in a long time. It's
I
going to bring
know.
up my mosquitoes, but oh well.
A trade-off.
A trade-off. There you go. I am super excited about this broadcast that we're going to have, show, I guess you could call it, because, I normally focus on getting people to retirement. And this is going to allow me to talk a little bit about what that means. How do you, all right, there's one thing to get there. You're saving. Then what do you do with that? So
hmm
that's why I called it structuring a portfolio.
Okay.
So first I'll read your bio
All
and
right.
then we'll jump right in. Is that cool?
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. Okay, everyone, please help me welcome. Oh, goodness. My friend and colleague, Crystal Mitchell. Crystal is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, a co-host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, a weekly online radio show, another weekly online radio show.
hmm
She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College. Uh, and she's also a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, along with that, a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Welcome, Crystal Mitchell.
Hello. Glad to
Good to
be
see
here.
you.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. All right.
That's how I gear what day it is based upon the podcast that I do.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm glad we get to kick it off. That sounds good.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so a really cool topic where we talk about that is, you know, how do we structure that portfolio, or just some ideas about that. The article that you sent to me, I read that, and I read most of that pretty closely, and it just struck me. The person had about $300,000, and they were looking at how am I going to make that stretch for the rest of my life, right? And I think many people I talk to are in a similar position. So I wanted to talk to folks about a little bit about what to expect and some things they can do. So the first thing on the list, and I've got my little list here, is first thing on the list is that our mindset is that we're going to get a check on a regular basis. So for example, we go to work, we get a check every 2 weeks. And so people get kind of used to that. If you own your own business, I guess it's a little bit different. That's not the case.
Not in the beginning.
Indeed. So, but I think many of us, we get a paycheck. That's
right.
We get to participate in the 401k plan.
Mm-hmm.
So you can set that up. And I think that's advantageous for many folks, because one of the things that we want to look at, and I have down here, is, first, a financial advisor, someone to help you make these decisions. We need to do that. And I always tell folks, if they're in a target date fund, especially 5 years before they retire, speak to a financial advisor. So a couple of the components that a financial advisor might suggest you is, remember, most of us can get Social Security checks once a month, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're talking with your financial advisor, and I know this is going to be tough, but I would go in there knowing what your check is going to be. Now, I've been in the position where I talk to people, and for some reason, for the most part, it's been women who've gone through a divorce, and they're in a tough spot because they used all of their money to raise their kids, and it just didn't go as far as it should have gone. And so they don't have a lot for savings, or at least by the time they get to me, they may have started savings in their retirement plan, for example, and they just haven't had enough time to get enough money in, if that makes sense. Had enough time to put enough money in to get to where they need to go. All right, so we look at their balance, and I've seen balances that are similar to that $300,000 mark, and then their question is, okay, how am I going to make this last? So the article that that you gave to me suggested, well, taking 50%, $50,000 out a year out over with $300,000 in there, you're looking at about 6 years. That's
Yeah, I saw that,
wow.
and that was pretty consistent across the board in the
Yeah.
number of cities. And those were low in. Those are cities don't have high cost of living.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in California, you might do well with 2 years. I don't know
Yeah,
what you're gonna
right.
do after 2 years.
Right. Things get tough, right? So the first thing that I would suggest is people have to get into that mindset that, okay, um, we're going to get that Social Security in. That's one. We'll come back to that. We're going to get that Social Security in. So how much is that going to be compared to my expenses that I think I'm going to have?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe that's, I think on average about $17,000. Let's say
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a year, 17,000
Someone
a
like
year.
that, yeah.
I think 1,700 a month. I think is what I want to say. Is that what I
Mm-hmm.
want to say?
Uh-huh.
Something like 1,700 a month. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you've got 1,700 a month. How much is your mortgage? And this is why I, as a financial advisor, I usually tell people, hey, it's good to have a house. It's good to have a house because the cool thing about a house is that your rent doesn't go up. That's the problem with rent is that it goes up on you. So that makes things kind of tough. So if you can find a way to get into a house, and I wouldn't suggest you do this 10 years before you get married. I suggest before you retire. I would suggest you do much earlier, right? If you can get into a house with the mindset of, okay, I'm either going to sell my home or I'm going to have some folks come into my home or I'm going to do something with this asset, then your retirement may be dramatically easier. And of course, as you know, I'm a big fan of the reverse mortgage. I really am. So if I have that Social Security check coming in at $1,700 a month, and I can get a reverse mortgage for my home, and let's say that's only $1,000 a month. Let's just say that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm looking at $2,700 a month. That's a lot better position to be in if you don't have a mortgage,
Right.
or if you don't have to pay rent. That's the deal, right?
Yeah.
Rent out here in SoCal is pretty expensive. So if we can eliminate that, of course, people are going to say, okay, Jevon, that's all well and good, but what about property tax? That's still there, right? And there's a chance it's going to go up. So we've got to put that in the mix. And it's tough to plan on that. And I don't want to say we want to forget about that, but your property tax is generally not going to be $1,000. Let's just say that a month. Let's just say
No, because it's gonna, you'll spread it out or whatever, or part of that reverse mortgage. If you're gonna do that, you actually could take out whatever your
property tax is going to
your
be.
property taxes would be, and maybe you could invest that in whatever dividends are coming back in from some investment. Again, talking to your financial advisors,
Yeah.
and maybe that could be. You have more options when you own a home.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that because that was going to be one of my next points, which we can go in. Many folks think, okay, I got 300K. How do I make that last? Or I have $1 million. Well, how do I make that last? But let's put in the equation that you're going to put some money into the market to help your finances grow. And indeed, as a financial advisor, when we sit down and we look at, okay, how much can we take out of here? The golden number is about 4%. That is to say, whatever your balance is, the stock market usually has an average growth factor of between 9 and 12%. Some folks might argue, well, that's actually between 9 and 11%. And then some folks might argue that's an average. And I think that's the best argument because when we say average, we mean that some years it's 18 or 20 and some years it's -4 or 5, right? So it's an average. But when we're doing the planning thing, that's kind of what we have to look at, right? So if we're looking at taking 4% off of that $300,000 or 4% off of that nest egg, that's what we're going to live off of for the year in order to keep that $300,000 there because you never know if you're going to have an emergency. But we also have to grow that asset. So if we think we're going to grow the asset 9 or 10%, and we take 4% out, now you can see how the wheels are turning, right? So if we've got, let's say it grows 10%, that's $30,000, but we need to take half of that out, $15,000 a year. Okay, so now you're looking at, I'm living on $1,000 a year. Okay, well, let me throw that reverse mortgage in there. So I get another $1,000 from the reverse mortgage. So now I'm looking at $2,700 or another $1,000 or $2,700 a month. Okay, that's great, but that means we may have to work till we get the highest amount we can from Social Security. So with many folks that I talk with, they're actually talking to me at 59. They're thinking, okay, I'm really tired of working. I want to relax. I want to sit down for a little bit. And I have to talk to them and break that news that based on your situation, you're probably going to be working for a little bit longer. And there's a good chance you're going to be working for 10 years longer than you think you are, which is tough. But
retirement is now what, 67?
67, yeah. But to get the full retirement, I think the number is still 72, right, rather than 65. So that's kind of tough. But I also say to them, okay, that's 10 years that you're still going to contribute to that 401k plan. So if you're living okay now and you're paying that mortgage down and you decide, I got to wait till I'm 72 before I retire, the 10 years or more that you continue to work, take that money that you get from Social Security. So let's say you get Social Security at 62, right? I'm munching some things up, but let's just say you get that Social Security at 62. You got to work till 72 before you're going to be able to take it out. Let's say you take that $1,000, let's say, and you use that to supplement your income, and you fully fund your 401k plan for the next 10 years at $26,000 a year. Okay. So now you've got your $300,000. You fully fund your 401k for 10 years at $26,000, let's say. Now you're looking at another $260,000. Okay. We could take that and we could stick that onto your money there. And then you could go to a financial advisor and say, okay, I've got $500,000 to buy an annuity with some portion of that. That's going to pay me, right? So now I've got some money coming in from that annuity. I still have that money from Social Security coming in, that $1,000, right? So I still have that money coming in. And if I don't do a reverse mortgage, or if I do a reverse mortgage, I've got some money coming in there, right?
Okay.
So we've got the monthly income coming in from Social Security. We've got the monthly income coming in from the annuity. And if we hold on to the house, that's one thing, but I'm going to suggest let's take a look at that reverse mortgage. That's some extra cash coming in. So the bad part about the reverse mortgage, number one, you can't pass the home on to your kids. They get a chance to buy the house. Well, we know generational wealth has a lot to do with passing assets down to kids. So I can get how you might want to hang on to it. On the other hand, I can also understand how if you don't hang on to it, then, you don't have to be bugging them for money, which would which can cause all kinds of issues that you may be owed their love and attention and time in their home. But how that looks when you need to have it is dramatically different than when everybody's coming from a place of happiness and goodwill. So it is something to consider, and it doesn't work for everyone. Some folks are like, I have to hang on to my house because that's where I live, and I need to do that for whatever reason. Or some folks might say, hell yeah, I need a reverse mortgage. I'm gonna get rid of this puppy, or I'm gonna hang on to the house. They can't kick me out, and I can stay here for the rest of my days. Oh yeah,
Right.
that sounds great. And they can move in here, right? I mean,
And then a lot of times they're more concerned about, oh, but I wanted to leave it to my children and they won't be able to qualify. Well, why are you worried about that? You need to live today. Unless your children gonna kick in what the reverse mortgage is gonna pay in order to
right,
make sure the house is in your name. But then
right,
it's gonna go to probate. It's a whole lot of
yes,
other things that you have to do in order to make sure that the house goes to the kids. At the same time, you're trying to live.
yes, and that's why you definitely need to have a family conversation about how
Yes.
this is going to work. But I
Right.
wouldn't kick out the reverse mortgage, and I wouldn't kick out Social Security, and I wouldn't kick out the big one for me is putting some of that money into the market so that it continues to grow your portfolio, right? So that you
Yeah.
can at least keep up with inflation. That's our
Right.
deal now. So
Yep.
you've got to think, okay, I've got to put some money in the market. And the last thing I have on my notes, let's see. Oh, is the annuity. I'm not a big fan of annuities before you retire. I think any financial advisor, and I'm going to stand by this. Any financial advisor, in most situations, is going to be able to get you a better deal on your annuity when you've got a bunch of cash, i.e., when you retire. So when you're working and working and working, think about, okay, a home is an asset, and it's only an
Mhm.
asset if I'm making money on it. So the very fact that I have it is not an asset. The very fact that it's making money growing now becomes an
Mhm.
asset.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to treat it that way, right? So my home is an asset. So that's a good thing to get in if you can. For those that are renting, that's tough. You don't
Yeah.
have the house thing to worry about, and you don't have the property tax thing to worry about. But you do have that rent thing you got to deal with. So there's that. The other thing is Social Security is coming in, right? So we're going to get that. So if you are one of those folks who owns your own business and hate paying taxes, consider you won't get Social Security if you don't pay taxes. That's where that comes from. So the Social Security Administration says you got to have 10 years of Social Security tax before you get to receive some. But 10 years,
Mhm.
you got to put money in 40 quarters, I think is how they say it.
Yeah, 40
So
quarters.
consider having that in your mix. For most of us that worked when we were dramatically younger and then decided to do this as a second part of our business, I mean, we already had 10 years in. But for some of us that never paid taxes, they just never did. That becomes an issue because you're not going to get that Social Security check. So
Right. They would have to pay their self-employment tax
yeah,
in order to make sure, because that kind of duplicates what would happen if you were working for someone. That's your FICA and your FUTA, which is your
exactly.
Medicare and your Social
Yeah.
Security. So you would have to pay. And little do people know that when you're self-employed and you have that LLC, and you can do this ISO if you're sole proprietor, that $800 that you pay every February, that
Mhm.
goes towards your Social Security.
There
Most
you go.
people think they're just paying that to the state of California. I've had I cannot tell you how many times I've had that conversation this year. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, it ain't about them. It's about
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
especially if you're young and you're starting this business early on. This is how you make sure for the latter part of your life you have your input, your Social Security and your Medicare. And I think out of all of those, that Medicare is so important because now you have insurance
Health
that is
insurance.
not going to cost you an arm and a leg when you're older, when you'd have more likely have more health challenges.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons, and maybe we should talk about on another broadcast, why it's so good to have multi-generational people around you. Maybe you don't like your relatives. That's fine. I don't know. But it's good to have generations around you and around the kids so that we can have some familiarity with how that goes, right? We're so focused on youth. Nobody wants to talk about how do you pay for being old because we're so focused on youth now. And,
Hmm.
for most of us, we're going to be a lot older for a lot longer than we were younger in our years. I mean, age
Mm-hmm.
lasts a long time. So when it
And we're
comes to
living longer, and we're living
yeah,
longer. And
yeah,
so you got to be able to make
want to
sure
do
that
that.
you have money while you know, or your parents, because if the parents don't have money, that means you still gonna be taking care of them.
That's true. That's true. And of course, I have one of those families where we've had to take assets out of parents' names, in order
Mm-hmm.
to make things happen. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's very good to be close to
Mm-hmm.
your family members so that you can see when's the appropriate time for that person to be poor. It may not be when you may not, maybe you shouldn't be poor at 65. I know this is going to be that. And maybe you shouldn't be poor at 65 or at 70 or at 70 or even at 80. Maybe it's not time for you to be poor. Maybe you only need to be poor at 90,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you need
Right.
no assets in your name at 90 so you can get the full government,
All
um,
the
all the
systems,
government.
because it's
But
very
I will tell
costly.
you this, not to interrupt you, but I will tell you this. Most of my friends that have had to deal with state agencies with regard to care for their elderly parents
Mm-hmm.
have been sorely disappointed. So you really, really want to be careful. And I would say, if you have a long life, if most of the people in your family live till the age of 50 and you got to 62 and you're having that conversation with a financial advisor, maybe your genes are maybe that's not a big concern of yours, right? Maybe, yeah. But if most of the people in your family live into their 90s, which is very possible now, especially if you've hit the age of 60, um, think, yeah, you're going to be around for a while and your life isn't necessarily going to be horrible for a while. So we need to think about how that's going to work and what that means to us and our families with regard to who's paying the money for what.
Exactly, because caring for, I was just had this conversation. I had someone on my, um, I had someone on my show last 2 weeks ago, and he's in the insurance industry, but he sells long term health care.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying they had paid, when his mother was younger, he because he was in the business, he had long term LTC for her, and he paid about 8 grand. But since they have it, it's been very beneficial in them taking care of his mother. So that was a number of, that she was in her like mid 50s when they bought it, somewhere like
Mm.
that. He's now in his mid 50s, or actually he's in close to 60, and he paid like some astronomical amount of money for LTC coverage for himself. But he also knows what it's taking to take care of his mom.
So there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's you either do it on the front end, and I'm looking at a status like if your parent is in a nursing home in the state of California, you could pay upwards to $146,000 a year for a private room. And then if you need home health care, if you're not doing that, you're looking at about $75,000 a year to care for your parents. So who can afford that? That's a
Yeah.
salary, man.
Salary. It is. It really is. It really
Yeah,
is.
so just things to think about, because they're going to get older, but every last one of us, especially those of us that are baby boomers, and then some of the but most of us that are baby boomers, we've been in that situation or getting ready to go through that situation. Some of us
Mm-hmm.
have already come on our other side of that, and it's costly.
It is. It's
Yeah.
expensive and it hurts and you don't want to put a price time on love and I think that's very important. I was talking to a gentleman that I used to work with and his father said to him that retirement is not about money. It's not about money at all. It's about choices. It's about
Hmm.
being able to make choices. And so when you don't save and you don't have cash, it's very difficult for you to make choices
Yeah.
and you end
And
up doing something.
exactly. And think about it, those of us that don't have children and haven't cultivated some nieces and nephews to take care of you in your older
Right?
age. So if y'all have children, I'm gonna tell y'all better find your favorite niece or nephew
Make them feel good. Do
and
something.
put them in the wheel because you're gonna need them.
Indeed. Well, we've come to the end of our show, so I'm going to read your bio once more, and then I'll let you get the last word. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, here we go. It's been great talking with all of you, and I hope you give us a call. I'm Jevon Thomas, retirement plan advisor. I help people set up and arrange to buy and have a retirement plan, a 401k or 403b. And my friend and colleague is Crystal Mitchell. And so here's her. Here's Crystal. A little bit about Crystal. She's a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's a co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, co-host of the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, the other radio show, online radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Crystal, thank you so much. Take us out with the last word, ma'am.
So it's always an honor to be here on the show and talking about our future. I always tell everybody when I'm on with one of my other podcasts is communications on the patio. And I said, because for those of us that are self-employed, we seem to think that it's supposed to go on forever. But there is an option that for you to retire, but you got to plan for it. So again, what we've been talking about, having options and be able to pre-plan for your retirement, knowing that one day it's going to either come voluntarily or it's going to come involuntarily. Preferably, you want it to be something that you've already planned out. So
Yeah.
plan, and make sure you meet with your advisors so that they can help you make sure you're making the right plan for yourself.
Well said. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, everyone. It's been great chatting with you, and we'll see you next week on Conversations on the Patio with Crystal and Jevon.
Awesome.